Leonardo DiCaprio.
Miss Anne Hathaway.
Meryl Streep, The Iron Lady.
Alan Arkin in Little Miss Sunshine.
Kevin Costner.
The King's Speech.
Birdman.
I'm Connor Old, and welcome back to another episode of Redoing the Oscars. And this week we're going to be looking at the 1996 Oscars, in particular the Best Lead Actor category, and talk about why I think Tom Cruise should have won for Jerry Maguire. But if you're new to the series, welcome. What I've been doing every single week now for many weeks, all the way back since March, is covering a major Oscar category for a year, going year by year, and talking about an alternative win. Someone who was nominated at the Oscars at the time that I think should have won over the eventual winner. We talk about that. We talk about some historical Oscars context up at the beginning. I also like to talk about an alternative non-nominated pick, someone who wasn't even nominated at all. And then finally, we just decide to figure out at the end, did the Academy make the right decision? From a historical legacy perspective, I give my personal opinion in terms of what I would switch out, but did the Academy actually make the final good and correct choice? That's what we try to figure out. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. What I love about this series is that it also proposes a question to all of you. It's fun for me to kind of redo the Oscars and rethink things, but you can also do the same thing and comment below and let me know which of the performances you would have maybe redid or maybe would have redone something like Best Picture. Love to hear that stuff in the comments down below. And ultimately, this is a series to celebrate performances and great performances, which is ultimately the goal of this series, and highlight people that were nominated and didn't win, or people that weren't even nominated at all. But without that out of the way, let's jump into things, starting off with some of that historical context. This is the 1996 Oscars year, which is The English Patient year, which is a movie that I don't necessarily absolutely love, but don't despise either. I don't think this is a terrible Best Picture win like Out of Africa or Crash, movies that just people don't really like, but it is a movie that maybe seemed more important at the time than its ultimate legacy. I don't think this is Anthony Minghella's best film. I don't think that's the consensus that this is his best film. Many of the leads, this isn't their best film. So it's kind of in this awkward situation where at the time it seemed like this great, important epic of the likes of Saul Zaentz, Lawrence of Arabia. He's done another one. It's going to go down in the history books. And in my opinion, just hasn't really had that reputation. It's had the reputation of being kind of stodgy and stuffy and not necessarily that rewatchable, but I know there are some people that like the movie and engage with the movie. It's just never been one for me personally, so I've had some trouble thinking about this as a great win, but I understand that some people do, so it's kind of in the middle, a mixed bag. But when you come in terms of the performances, we're redoing the Best Lead Actor category, in part because I like all of the other performances for the most part. I think the win of Frances McDormand for Best Lead Actress in Fargo is an absolute banger of a win. This is one of my favorite performances of the 90s. It is definitely Frances McDormand's most known role. It's a movie that has stood the test of time from one of our premier filmmakers still working today in sorts in the Coen brothers. Then you have Best Supporting Actor, which went to Cuba Gooding Jr. and Jerry Maguire. And even though Cuba didn't have a hugely successful leading man career, he's still working today and well liked. And I do think, just because I really like Jerry Maguire and I think it's one of the best sports movies, him having one of the best performances in a sports movie means he's one of the best kind of athlete performances on screen. So just the fact that this is one of the best sports movies, and that's not a super deep genre, the sports movie genre, it's going to have a legacy in that sense of being one of the best performances in his genre. And I do think still, every time I watch the movie, it is a really great performance. It is a lot of fun. He does bring a lot of energy to it. There is like a likability that is hard not to appreciate, even though his post-career wasn't necessarily the same heights as what he did here in Jerry Maguire. And then Best Supporting Actress went to Juliette Binoche for The English Patient. And while I don't really like that part of the movie, the part I do like about The English Patient is Kristen Scott Thomas and Ralph Fiennes. But I like Juliette Binoche, and they would have never and have really never rewarded her for any of her, European and French films. So, if this can be kind of a secret win for Three Colors Blue, or The Taste of Things, or Certified Copy, that's what the tip of my tongue there. She's done many great performances, so I'm glad she has an Oscar, even though this is not a top 10 Juliette Binoche performance, in my opinion. Like I said, I do know some people like the movie, but even if they like the movie, they don't necessarily love this part of the movie. At the end of the day, though, I really like Juliette Binoche. She is a great actress. She deserves an Oscar. Would I have given it to her for this? No, but I'm not going to take it away from her. But taking a look at the Best Lead Actor category, that's the category that I think definitely can be redone. And we'll talk at the end of the video whether or not the Academy made the right choice. Spoiler, they didn't, but I'm going to celebrate performances on this channel, which is why I'm going to now jump into my alternative nominated pick. My winner for Best Lead Actor at the 1996 Oscars, I think, should have been Tom Cruise for Jerry Maguire. And what I love about this movie and this performance, and Tom Cruise as an actor generally, is that he's one of the very few movie stars who can also be a great actor. Some movie stars, they're just good at being likable. Think of a Harrison Ford. I love Harrison Ford. I like him, just watching him in The Fugitive and be kind of himself. I don't necessarily love him, and I haven't seen him in a lot of super transformative performances. He's good as the kind of movie star, likable kind of a guy. But what's interesting about Tom Cruise is that he can do both. He can be in a movie like Jack Reacher and just be likable, or Cocktail or something like that, and just be kind of a likable movie star with a great aura and energy and a great smile and just a fun hang. But then he can also, I think, be transformative in a movie like Born on the 4th of July or Magnolia, and actually totally kind of transform into what this character is. But my favorite of his performances is when he can actually combine both within the same movie, in which he can use all of his movie star persona to be likable, to use his charm and his smile, while also kind of making us believe that this is a real character with a real arc and a real journey. And there's really actually only a select few in which he combines the two. Oftentimes he's doing one or the other. But I think of something like Top Gun Maverick. I think of Edge of Tomorrow. I think of Eyes Wide Shut. And I think of this movie. And I think this is really one of, if not his premier performance, his best performance, which is saying something as an actor who has been in our lives for many years, many decades, and consistently a good actor. And then within this movie, let's talk about things. Those two elements, the movie star element of things, in which what I think he utilizes in this movie is a believability of him being a sport agent, that he has this sense of swagger and natural charisma that people will just want to gravitate towards him, that in every sense of the word, in every room that he goes into, he can captivate the audience. He can lock in on someone and make them feel like they're the most important person in the world, which is probably a quality necessary for sports agents who have many clients who are all elite athletes and demand a lot of them. And it's kind of a difficult thing to describe. I mean, we did a whole series called Movie Star Magic, trying to understand the magic and the specialness of a movie star, which ultimately you can't. They all have their own different little abilities, but Tom Cruise, I think, though, is his smile, is his ability to look you directly in the eye, or in his characters in the eye or the camera, and feel like there's this sense of connection and intense listening, I think. And he has this combination of being charming, successful, and being able to be this ideal person, but then also I think in the second half of the movie, when he's so exasperated and so funny and physical, that he seems more like a normal guy that can just have a beer and hang out. So that side of things is difficult, but I do think throughout this movie, I mean, just the fact that the movie's called Jerry Maguire, he plays Jerry Maguire, this is a 2-hour and 20-minute movie with no CGI or anything like that. It's a lot of him on screen all the time, and you don't feel the length, and you like just kind of going on the journey with him. Part of that is just his movie star magic. There is a movie star quality that he utilizes just to carry a film called Jerry Maguire for 2.5 hours, in which he's in almost every single frame. there's a testament to just his ability as a movie star to be interesting and make interesting choices throughout the movie and having people still just want to hang out with him. But I also think that this is, a Cameron Crowe movie and a great character with a huge arc, a clear and definable arc. The Jerry Maguire at the beginning is completely different than the Jerry Maguire at the end, and Cruise sells us on the journey and sells us on every aspect and the beginning and the end. There's a believability, I think, to the story, in part because of his performance, in part because at the beginning, he is generally good as a sports agent who can be, like I mentioned, locking in on someone and very charismatic, but also slimy and cutthroat and immediately backtalk someone who they were just in a room praising, and that kind of on-off switch in that first 30 minutes of the movie. We see that kind of back and forth. And then in the second half of the movie, you have these two parallel plots, a romantic plot and then a plot with Rod Tidwell, which of its own right, his last client, a romantic plot. And what he has to do is essentially shed all of what he was at the beginning of the movie and learn how to become honest and real and genuine, and that's how he ultimately finds success within the movie. First, with Rod Tidwell being someone that he can kind of genuinely connect with and relate with and understands and sees his potential and actually genuinely believes in him, not in just a monetary, fake, slimy business way. And then also on the romantic side, he has to learn the same lesson. He has to be honest, he has to be vulnerable, he has to be kind of in touch with his emotions. And I think Cruise does that a lot with his, what I would call exasperation. He is very tired, he is very over things. Sometimes that's just like yelling and arguing, and sometimes that's professing your love in this big speech. But it's a testament to Cruise as an actor that we believe that the same guy who was very good at being slimy can also be vulnerable and honest in some of those human emotion connections with Renee Zellweger's son, in terms of their romantic relationship, in terms of the genuine brothership that he has with Rod Tidwell and his family. He brings a lot of these genuine emotional moments to life through some of just his humanity, through his acting, and through his believability. There's a sense of this is a real guy who went on a journey. He grounds it. He grounds some of the flowery language that Cameron Crowe is able to bring in this everyday sensibility. I think part of it has to do with that exasperation, and part of it has to do with just his movie star quality, knowing when to smile at the right time, and how to kind of engage and relate and really lean in on an actor that makes us also want to lean in and feel connected to this main character. I think these types of movies don't get made today, and Cameron Crowe is a one of one, and I don't think there has been a new Cameron Crowe in terms of just a engaging 2-hour plus character drama. But part of the reason I think maybe why they don't exist anymore is because many great actors, not every actor can do that. There's only a few, I think, on the planet that can really nail this type of a story. And Tom Cruise at this time was the perfect actor to do it. And I think it's one of his best roles from one of our premier actors and movie stars of all time. So if I were to give a win, it would have been Tom Cruise for Jerry Maguire. Then my alternative non-nominated pick, I'm going to go with Adam Sandler in Happy Gilmore. We're going back to the comedy well. In the beginning of the series, I would always usually go with comedic actors like Will Forte in MacGruber, but we're going back to the well again, in part because I think this movie is great, and this would have never been in consideration for the Oscars, but why not? Adam Sandler is a great actor who is continuing to make great movies still today, and he has, never won an Oscar. And similarly to Cruise, where Jerry Maguire is kind of a combination of his two personas, the actor and the movie star, Adam Sandler can be an actor and a movie star, although this is so early on in his career, what it really is the definition of what that movie star is. This kind of angry man-child that he plays so well, that is so funny for this angry hockey player turned golfer, and the kind of rambunctiousness of one community entering in the kind of high-class upper society of another, and the kind of humor that is able to be pulled because of that. Now, I don't have a lot to say in terms of why this performance is good. It's kind of just like, I find him funny, and describing comedy is very difficult because it's just, I found it funny and I laughed. But I do think that he's able to kind of do a couple things. Obviously, his physical nature reminds me a lot of, Jim Carrey in terms of how over the top and exaggerated it is. His line deliveries are oftentimes funnier than the lines themselves, in just this kind of babyish, mannish, angry, bubbling to the surface kind of a way that only Sandler knows how to do. That kind of deep anger that is within him that you can see boiling over and feels genuine and real, like it's actually coming from the person. But then I also think that this movie, and his movie star persona in general, is a rare persona because it's dedicated to the funny, to the bit. Similar to, we mentioned Will Forte and MacGruber, who is absolutely committed to making things as funny as possible. Sandler's doing the same thing here, and I love performers that do that. Kristen Wiig, I think, is another example, where sometimes modern performers, particularly comedy performers, they want to seem cool, or they want to seem like they're in on the joke. But what some actually of the best comedic performers, like an Adam Sandler, is what's the funniest thing possible. And in this case, the funniest thing possible is to continually embarrass himself and make him look like an idiot throughout the entire movie. That's the funniest thing possible. And guess what? You have to give credit to Sandler for committing to that and to actually deciding to be as ridiculous and crazy as he is throughout the movie. There is that dedication and self of respect and bravery as a performance to be like, I'm going to look like a complete idiot for the sake of being funny in this movie. And ultimately, in the end, people will like me because they like my movies, but I'm going to look like an idiot. I'm going to try things out, even though it may feel a little bit awkward. And there's no sense of, winking at the audience at all. And I think that's necessary for this role. So shout out to Adam Sandler. Shout out to Happy Gilmore. A great performance in a great movie. That definitely wouldn't have been considered for the Oscars, but I mean it. I genuinely do think this was one of the best 5 lead male actor performances of this year, so why not? Let's redo it. Let's give him a nomination. And then, to finally end things off, did the Academy make the right decision with Geoffrey Rush in Shine? And I'm going to go with a definitive hell no. This is, I think, one of the worst wins in Oscars history. I think Geoffrey Rush actually shouldn't have been in the lead actor category. If you've seen Shine, like I have, which is a pretty decent film, the best parts of the movie, I think, are the first 2/3 of the movie, in which he is not in it at all. It was a shocker to me the first time I saw the movie to think, okay, Geoffrey Rush and Shine, this must have been a great performance to beat out Tom Cruise and Jerry Maguire, right? And then you watch the movie, and then you're in, I don't know, an hour plus into the movie, and Geoffrey Rush hasn't even shown up. He only shows up in the last quarter of the movie. He's barely in the movie. It is, an involved performance in that it's transformative. He's kind of playing this tick. That being said, though, I do think it's kind of a little bit of a one-note performance, and it's just playing this kind of a tick rather than playing like the real-life version of this person, if that makes any sense. It doesn't necessarily feel lived in and true. It feels like a little bit of a party trick. I just always found it weird because Geoffrey Rush, while a good actor, hasn't made the contributions to cinema, in my opinion, that Tom Cruise has. And this isn't necessarily a super popular movie that a lot of people have seen. People would give it to maybe Captain Barbossa in the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise or some of his other roles. This isn't his most iconic role either. And in part, it's taken away from Tom Cruise, which at this point, he'd already been into best, or at least one Best Picture win in Rain Man. Born on the 4th of July was another major movie in terms of winning Best Director. But there's some kind of explanations of a sort at the time where you can go, okay, he should have won for Born on the 4th of July, but guess what? He went up against Daniel Day-Lewis in My Left Foot, a legend, a great performance. So, it makes sense why he didn't win here. But he'd already been in Born on the 4th of July, which was a major Oscar contender. He had already been in Rain Man, which won Best Picture. Now he's in Jerry Maguire. He was a big deal by the time Jerry Maguire came along. This was a huge hit. This was clearly a definitive role. The movie got nominated for Best Picture. It was an Oscars contender. How did Jerry Maguire not win from Jerry Maguire? It still boggles my mind today. I think, even if you think the kind of Scientology stuff is going to ruin Tom Cruise's legacy, he is undoubtedly made a huge contribution to cinema through what he's done so far and the many great movies that he has contributed, that him not having an Oscar is such an odd thing. Now, in a few years' time, maybe people look back on this video and go, oh, Connor, he does eventually win an Oscar for Digger. That hasn't happened yet. I haven't seen that movie. Maybe that happens in a year's time, but I don't necessarily know if Digger will be his most iconic performance and will be definitely deserving. It may be a little bit more of a legacy win, versus someone like Jerry Maguire, which could have been a great win for one of his most iconic roles at the time, rewarded him properly, but the Oscars don't do that, which is why we redo the Oscars, which is why we kind of take a look at this whole series and try to redo things and have this fun thought exercise. But that's about it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you comment below. Let me know your thoughts on this video and on just the 1996 Oscars year, and would you have also picked with Tom Cruise, or maybe would have redid a different category, like maybe Best Supporting Actress. Love to hear that thoughts in the comments down below, and stay tuned to next week. We're going to be covering, of course, 1995, Mondays at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. You can expect these videos to come out like clockwork. But that's about it. Until next time, stay tuned.